What can I say? How should I start this review, anyways? Here's the thing with Steven Spielberg. A lot of people say that Steven Spielberg tends to simplify his themes, and usually his themes are very strong, very philosophical, very emotional themes that should be taken seriously and should be taken in a very thorough light. Whether it's World War II, whether it's racism, most people say he tends to simplify these topics. I don't agree with that. However, I will say that sometimes he tends to not simplify the topic, but show them in a very sentimental light. This is very much so the case with Saving Private Ryan, a film that the more I think about it, the more I dislike it, actually. I feel like it's very much so very much so the standard of the film that basically says Murica instead of America. It feels way too patriotic, and to the point where it's almost self-obsessed and self-absorbed. And when it comes to Spielberg, he's very interested in World War II, and how can he not be? His father was a soldier. He is a Jewish person, and when he was born, and he lived in the period when the war still felt very visible. The presence of the war was still kind of over their heads. It still existed, and they felt it. Not like now, where we're making Holocaust jokes. Back then, it still felt real, even though it was over. And because of this, he would make many films about World War II. And most of the time, it would be in either a very sentimental light, like Saving Private Ryan, or in a very light light, light as a feather, in that way light. Like Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is basically a World War II movie in a Saturday morning cartoon style fashion, and because of this, none of his movies ever really gets into the meat of World War II as much as Schindler's List. And by saying that, you might have noticed that Schindler's List is that one movie where he actually takes this shit seriously. It's great. What can I say? It is a fucking amazing movie. If anything, it's everything that Spielberg does well and more. The first thing that's really great about this movie is that it's not as brutal as some Holocaust films. That's one thing that we need to understand. It's not like Shoah. It's not like Night and Fog. But those films are documentaries. That's the one thing. This film is not as brutal as, say, Saving Private Ryan or other Holocaust films. But here's why that's a good thing. It doesn't focus too much on the brutality. Because of that, it feels like it's exploiting the brutality a little bit less than other movies. It's not trying to grab you by the neck and saying that you should feel some emotion for this film by showing all this violence. It simply shows violence as a backdrop. And it focuses more on the characters. It focuses more on building up and making us being more acquainted with certain individuals to make us feel the whole thing more, tangibly as a whole. That is great filmmaking. It's not simply showing you people getting killed over and over again, people you never really knew, people you never really cared for. It's not simply trying to make you feel emotional by showing you violence. It's trying to make you feel emotional by making you actually care about certain people, in the end representing the whole. That is great filmmaking. Which, is also why he used that red coat with the little girl. We now see that individual. You might not even care about the other characters, but you see that little girl. And Oskar Schindler sees that little girl. And he realizes that this war is not about... It is about the whole, but there are individuals in this process. It's not simply a number. The millions of Jews that died in this war is not simply a number. It's a number that consists of individual people, including children, including women, including innocent men. And that's such powerful filmmaking. It's better than simply shoving violence in your face. And it's definitely, oh god. And there's definitely true horror in this film. While it doesn't focus on violence, it focuses on how it affects the people. And the way the war affects people is that it's not really the killing that's scary. It's the fact that the people accept this as a reality. That's the fucking scary part. It's not that Nazis are killing Jews left and right. It's the fact that the Jews are now accepting the fact that they might be killed one day. The fact that they finally just throw away their resistance and accept the fact that they are scum and that they will die if they do something wrong. That is much more scarier than a person getting shot. It's much more scary than violence, because now death is just a part of their lives. I find that much more scary than anything, quite honestly. I also like the fact that it is definitely an extremely well-paced character development movie. Oskar Schindler starts as this guy who just wants money, and he fucks a lot of women. That's how he starts. He starts as a very shallow character. But as it goes on, as he sees the massacre at the ghetto, as he understands that the people he actually likes are being affected by this war, the fact that after he realizes that, like the audience, the people who are dying consists of individuals, he starts to change himself. He keeps going on with his little business, but he uses that business to save people. At first, he didn't really care about the people. He just wanted the business to go on. But he actually cares about the people at the end. I feel like the scene where, the famous scene where he just starts screaming out, "I could have saved one more." A lot of people say that's the scene where Steven Spielberg decides to be sentimental again. I don't think so. Yes, it does feel very cinematic, but that scene proves two things. One, Oskar Schindler is not simply a greedy character even at the end. He actually changed. He wanted to save these people. He actually is a changed man. Some people say that they think Oskar Schindler at the end is still the shallow man that he started as, but that scene where he just breaks down crying, you never saw him crying the whole film. You never saw him really become overly emotional in the whole film, but there he is. He's on the ground. He's crying for the fact that he could have saved more. That shows character development. That is basically, that even if that scene is overly sentimental, it's earned. That's a scene that's overly sentimental for no reason, and a scene that's sentimental for earned reasons is very different. This scene is earned. And the second thing that this scene proves is that the film is actually capable of contemplating the horrors of war even after the relief strikes. At that point in the movie, the war's over. Everybody should be happy. But nobody is, because the war is technically not over. They still can't. A lot of Jews have died. That is not a laughing matter. And with that scene, it basically shows you that Spielberg didn't want a happy ending. I don't think the film has a happy ending. It has a hopeful ending, but it's not happy. The film still. That scene is basically telling me that, yes, the war's over, but the effect that the war had in history in general is still existent even to this day. And that's such a powerful message. I don't think that scene is contrived. I think that scene is genuinely earned. And of course, this all is done, effectively because of the acting. I hate Liam Neeson. I'm sorry, I never liked Liam Neeson as an actor. I feel like he's always been a very one-note actor. In this film, he basically shows me that he is capable of doing great performances, that he's not simply an action hero. Back in the 90s, Liam Neeson was a genuine dramatic actor. Except Star Wars Episode 1, but that's a whole other story. But here he's just great. Like, I can't say anything else. He's great. And Ralph Fiennes as the Nazi, fuck that. That performance needed an Oscar, man. Like, that was just one of the most brutal, scary, horrifying performances I have ever seen, and I bet it actually affected him as well on a personal level, because that was just way too much. The film is also a film where I feel like the influences that Spielberg had back in the day while he was watching movies shows. This film definitely shows his influences, his cinematic influences. Like this scene where all the Jews are coming over the hill. It reminds me of Lawrence of Arabia. This scene where the Ralph Fiennes character is trying to shoot this old man, but the gun doesn't work, and we slowly build that scene up. And at the very end, Ralph Fiennes basically just clicks the gun, tries to shoot, clicks the gun, tries to, and this happens in mere seconds, and at the end he just hits the man with the gun. That scene builds up in a very Hitchcockian way. Alfred Hitchcock would have loved that scene. And there's also a scene at the Auschwitz camp, there's this shower scene, and we all know what happens in the showers and at an Auschwitz camp, and because we know what might happen, the scene builds up, and I'm not going to tell you what actually happens, but the scene builds up way too much suspense, and it's very Hitchcockian. It basically plays on the fact that the explosion of the bomb is not the scary part. It's the weighting of the explosion that's scary. It plays on that idea that Hitchcock always played with, and here Spielberg is playing with it again, as Spielberg always said that one of his greatest influences is Alfred Hitchcock. This film is not only one of the most authentic portrayals of World War II, not the most authentic portrayal, but definitely one of the most authentic portrayals that Steven Spielberg can try. Not only is it terrifying to watch, not only is it very emotional and very, emotionally earned, it's also just really well made. It shows his influences, and he uses those influences very well. And like I said, yes, some people might find it sentimental at the end. I feel like every single thing that the film achieves at the end is earned. That's what I feel. It's that good of a movie. All the things that people can say are flaws in this film, I feel like are earned. And I think by now you know that my rating is going to be a masterpiece rating. It is a masterpiece. I'm not sure if I'm calling it a masterpiece because I was emotionally struck by the sheer terror of World War II and the Holocaust that was on screen. But if that's still the case, I think this film's just an emotional ride. I feel like it's just extremely well made. I feel like everyone should watch it. It's not the best Holocaust movie, but it's definitely one of the best. It's just great. Just watch it. It's great. Yeah. Masterpiece. Schindler's List. Masterpiece. Bye.